Okay, I think it's fine. Okay. Okay, good.
All right. Okay. I think maybe we can start now. But first and foremost, let me introduce our speakers today. Okay. All right. So before we proceed with today's sharing sessions on the lecture series, let me briefly introduce a little bit about the Professor Dr. Patrick Manu. So Professor Patrick Manu is Professor of Innovative Construction and Project Management in the School of Architecture and Environment at the University of the West of England, United Kingdom. His expertise in construction and project management research straddles multiple areas including occupational safety and health, infrastructure procurement, digital constructions, and sustainable construction. He has been involved as principal investigator and co-investigator in research project valued about GBP 1.9 million pound, which funded by several organizations including Innovate UK, Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, Health and Safety Executive, Lloyd's Registered Foundation, British Council Newton Fund, VNCE, and the Department for International Development. He led as principal investigator an international consortium of 11 organizations, including Heathrow Airport Health and Safety Executive, BAM Construction Limited, Mott McDonald's, Loughborough University, and East Carolina University in an EPSRC-funded research to develop the first web-based application for assessing design for occupational safety and health organizational capability, which won a highly commended innovation award from HS2 Limited. All right. So additionally, he was co-investigator of LRF-funded research project, which has been awarded two prestigious awards, the Building Smart International Award 2020 and the Health and Safety Software of the Year Construction Computing Awards 2021 for the developments of a novel digital application for design for health and safety in the construction industry. Prof also has led international initiatives to publish the first book on construction health and safety in developing countries, which won the 2019 Taylor and Franchise Outstanding Books and Digital Product Award within the Best Monograph in Engineering category. Yeah? And he also led international initiatives to produce two first novel books titled Handbook of Construction Safety, Health and Wellbeing in the Industry 4.0 Era and Construction Safety, Health and Wellbeing in the COVID-19 Era. He has over 120 publications, including articles in leading Q1 multidisciplinary and built environment journals, and also co-author of the 3 editions of the International Cost Management Standards. Prof also a member of the EPSRC Peer Review College and a detailed assessor for the Australian Research Council, and also associate editor for Safety Science Journal, a world-leading Q1 journal for safety research, and also practical experience on the working in the construction sector in the quantity surveying and project management roles for the procurement and delivery of the building infrastructure. And also an incorporate member of the Chartered Institute of Building. So actually for today, I'm quite happy and feeling very grateful because most of my thesis and also my paper citing your paper. So
Okay.
I'm quite nervous actually because I am seeing you in person for today. All right. So
Okay.
without further ado, please join me in giving a warm and enthusiastic welcome to Professor Patrick Manu as he enlightens us on the topic of the design for safety in construction. Please welcome, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'm conscious of time, so let's just get the ball rolling. I have some things on my screen now. Let me close this. Let me close that. And let me move this bar somewhere else. Okay, let me move the bar down. Okay, good. Yeah. So thanks very much for having me. So I did this lecture, I think, last year and the year before last year. And so it is a pleasure here for me to do this lecture again. And actually, I was in Malaysia in this year in January. So yeah, it was a pleasure visiting UITM. I met several of the members of staff over there. It's such a very lovely campus. Yeah, and I had the chance to, go to KLCC. Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, and yeah, so that was really good. Yeah, so it was a really lovely time. Yeah, being in Malaysia. I went to Putrajaya and Cyberjaya, and yeah, so yeah, so it was really lovely. But so today I'm just talking about design for safety and health in
Mm,
construction. So I believe some of you or all of you will be aware of OSHIM
yeah.
In Malaysia, how that OSHIM sort of like emerged from a similar framework or regulation. Talk, yeah, about design for safety. So these are the aims of my lecture. So review the state of safety and health in construction. I'll cover the UK, Europe, and some global perspective, and then explore some of the key causes of accident in construction, and then we'll explore the field of design for safety and health within construction. Okay, but I'll have some questions for you as we move along. Okay, next slide. Come in. Okay, yeah. So some basic definitions. My thing is frozen a bit. Okay, so some basic definitions I think we should be aware of. So when we talk about health, safety, and well-being, so what do we mean by that? So health basically talks about how we protect, the bodies and the minds of the people who work within our industry from illnesses, but not just any illnesses, but illnesses resulting from the materials, the processes, and the procedures we use within our, workplaces. So for construction, that will be protecting, the bodies and the minds of people from illnesses that result from the materials that are used in construction, the processes used in construction, or the procedures used within construction. Then in terms of safety, is mainly about protecting people from physical injury. Okay, so whereas health talks about illnesses, safety issues talks about physical injury, and then there are other things as well over there, but I wouldn't dwell too much on them. And then when we hear of people talk about accidents, near misses, so what are they? So a near miss is an incident that could have resulted in an accident. So what is an accident? An accident is an unplanned event that results in injury or illness of people, damage or loss to plant or property or materials or the environment, or a loss of a business opportunity. And so if there is an incident that doesn't result in any injury or harm, then we call those incidents near misses. Okay, but if there's an incident that results in harm or injury, then we call those ones accident. But in the UK, there's something else we call dangerous occurrences. So these are near misses, a near miss which could have resulted in a catastrophic outcome, maybe for people. So, for example, maybe collapse of maybe a machinery or a plant on site. And what is an hazard, or what is a hazard? So a hazard is anything that has a potential to cause harm. And what is risk? Risk is simply the likelihood of occurrence of harm. So let me give this example. So assuming there is fire, okay, wherever you are now. So fire is a hazard. So fire has a potential to cause harm, okay? But the risk or the likelihood of harm occurring to you as a result of the fire may be zero. And that is because maybe the fire may be in the next room, okay? And so that fire, you are not exposed to it. And so the likelihood of occurrence of harm to you may be either zero or very low, okay? So risk and hazard, although sometimes people use them interchangeably, they are not exactly the same thing. So whereas hazard talks about the potential for something to cause harm, risk has to do with the likelihood of occurrence of harm as a result of that hazard, okay? But oftentimes it is a hazard and then being exposed to the hazard that would, introduce the likelihood of harm occurring to you. So quickly applying these definitions or concepts. So on the screen there, you have the tallest, at the moment, the tallest building I think in the UK is the Shard in London. So can you consider so considering this project, so think about one potential hazard, but because of time, I'll carry on. So one potential hazard will be, let's say, will be work at height, because people will be working at height, so that poses a hazard. So work at height has the potential to cause harm, so that is a hazard. Okay, but what is the risk of an accident occurring as a result of the hazard? So in this case, it is very high, because people are exposed. The exposure will be high. Okay, and how can that be eliminated or minimized? So maybe they will use fall protection equipment or harnesses, or they might design the building such that the building is completely pre-assembled. So components might be manufactured in a factory, and then they can be brought to site and then assembled, using mechanical means, so that people wouldn't have to work. That way. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is the first quiz I have for you. So I'm using Mentimeter. So just go to mentimeter.com. So just type this in your browser and then enter this code. Okay, and then respond to the. So you can do it on your phone or your laptop or your tablet. Okay, and let's see the responses we get. Okay. So have you tried it? Okay, so I can see 2 people have done it. So let's wait for a few more results. Okay. So it's mentimeter.com. Okay. And then that's the code. Let me copy it and put it in the chat. Okay. So I'm putting this in the chat. So good. So mentimeter.com, and then use that code. Okay. But so I'm going to hurry on, but I'll come back to this when I see that more of you have completed it. Okay. But because of time, let's move on. But I've put the web address and then the code in the chat. So just pick them and then complete the survey. Okay. So I'll come back to that later. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So health and safety in the UK construction industry. So I'll just give a quick overview, okay, of health and safety performance. So in the UK construction industry, so the construction industry is one of the most hazardous industries within the UK, and has one of the worst performance in terms of safety and health. Okay, one of the highest number and rate of fatal accident. Okay, the industry is known for that. Okay, so the industry employs about 10% of the working population. The industry accounts for about 30% of all fatal injuries. And so that is very disproportionate. So although we employ fewer people, we are responsible for the deaths, okay, of a greater portion of the people within the workforce. Okay, and these are some charts here, to talk about the safety performance within the construction industry. So in 2019, 2020, in UK, we recorded about 40 fatal injuries, and majority of them were as a result of people falling from height or working at height. And then in terms of non-fatal injuries, so the UK around the 2020, so the UK recorded, about 60,000 non-fatal injuries, which is very high. Okay, a lot of people sustained injuries. And then in terms of health, illnesses, sicknesses, about 81,000. Okay, workers, suffered from work-related ill health. Okay, either new ones or long-standing ones. Okay, but the majority of them were as a result of musculoskeletal disorders. So people having maybe problems, things like back pains and so on and so forth. Okay, yeah. So that gives us some bit of information about the health and safety performance in the UK. And when we compare the construction in the UK to other sectors, okay, so this is a bit dated now, but what I want to highlight is things. So although the trend seems to be going down over the years, okay, but compared with other sectors, the construction industry, okay, has a reputation of, accounting for more, okay, or a greater number, okay, of fatal injuries to people within that sector. And then in terms of illnesses, when you compare construction to other sectors, some of the historical data shows that, we don't have a very good performance. So when you compare the, construction with all other industries, so consistently, the estimated rate, okay, of total cases of self-reported illnesses, okay, have been higher than in construction compared to all other industries put together. Okay, so that isn't good at all. And when you go outside of the UK, when you look at Europe, we see a similar trend where, historical, data, has shown that consistently construction, has had, has had worse performance, in terms of health and safety compared to other sectors. And when you look outside of of Europe, when you look at countries like the United States, again we see a similar trend. Construction accounting for a larger number of fatal injuries, okay, compared with some of the other sectors. So in 2019, in the US, they recorded over 1,000 fatal injuries in construction alone, over 1,000, okay? And the US is made up of 50 states. So if you divide 1,000 by 50, so approximately it's like maybe over 50, maybe, so 1,000 divided by 50, that'll be 20, right? So over 20 fatal injuries, in each of the states in the US. And again, on a global perspective, when you look at other countries like Vietnam, historical data, shows that, they recorded a very high, number and percentage in, for example, in 2014, when I went to the office, I saw on the BBC News that a worker on the Crossrail Tunnel project in London had died. Okay, and they were trying to achieve zero fatalities on that project. Excuse me, but unfortunately, one worker lost their life on that particular project. Okay, so this brings me to my second quiz. Which of the following can be described as an underlying or root cause of accident in construction? Okay, so let me bring up my second quiz. But before I do that, let's look at the first quiz. Okay, so the first quiz, I still had only, come in, just voting is closed. Okay, see. Okay, so the first quiz, I may have closed the voting unintentionally, but we only have 6 people who responded. Maybe the second quiz had more people respond. So let's see the results. Okay. So all of those who responded said yes. So construction is one of the most hazardous sectors within the industry. So you got that correct. So now let me move on to the next quiz. Okay, so my second quiz is this. Okay, so let me share the quiz. Okay, yes. So this is my second quiz. Which of the following can be described as an underlying or root cause of accidents in construction? So kindly choose, click, and that is the code you need to use. So that the code is up there. So that's the code you see up there, 241655750. So just go to the website and then you put that code in there. So maybe let me type the code in the chat. So the quiz 2, let me type the code. So one person has voted. I can see that two people have voted. Let me type this into the quiz 2 code. Okay, so I'll put the code in the chat. Okay, so just pick the code and then complete it. Okay. So let's carry on and then I'll come back to that. Okay. Let me go back and see if it's still there. Okay, good. Yeah. So just use the code in the chat and then complete that quiz. Okay. So I'll come back to it later. So now let's move on. Okay. So the case for improving safety and health within construction. So as a result of the accidents and injuries and deaths, okay. So these have sort of like increased, if you like, the need, okay, for us to address, okay, or improve safety and health within construction. So the accidents and injuries and deaths, okay, they are related to huge economic and social cost. So some of the areas of cost are the cost to the employer, either the contractor or the subcontractor. Government also incur cost. Okay, so the employees, okay, the clients and the industry and society as a whole, okay, so we all incur costs, okay, as a result of working in construction. Okay. Okay, yeah. So these are some of the areas of cost within construction. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay. But in the UK, the Health and Safety Executive estimated they wanted to quantify the economic cost of injuries and illnesses in the UK construction. And this is what they came up with. So they estimated that injuries and illnesses cost about 1.2 billion pounds. Okay. So that's a very big amount of money. And that accounts for about 8% of the total cost of all industries. So construction alone, we account for about 8%, okay, of that total cost, which is quite, substantial, okay? But the point is, so what could we do with 1 billion pounds, okay? So assuming we are able to save 1 billion pounds, so these are projects in the UK that cost about 500,000 pounds as at the time they were constructed. So the London 2012 Olympic Stadium cost about 500,000. The shot cost about 500,000 pounds. So that should tell us that if we are able to save 1 billion pounds, so maybe every year we probably would have been able to build one stadium and then one of the shot. Okay, so that tells us the importance or the significance of the need for us to address safety and health issues within construction industry. Okay. And these costs are the tip of the iceberg, okay? The ones that we are able to estimate, they are the direct costs. But beneath the direct costs are other costs, okay, which are more sort of like intangible, or they are more difficult, to estimate. And so if we look at the direct and the indirect cost, okay, of accidents or illnesses or injuries, that can be very huge, okay? That can be very huge, okay? So now let's talk a bit more about what causes these accidents and injuries and so on and so forth. So several studies have been done within construction, but I've highlighted just 3 of them. So the first one was done by a group of academics at the now what we know as the University of Manchester. The second one was done by a group of researchers, at the University of Loughborough or Loughborough University, and the third one was it talks about the piece of work I did for my own PhD. Okay, and these studies presented what they call models of accident causation within construction, and these models essentially try to explain how accidents occur in construction, or the process or the mechanism that leads to the occurrence of accidents in construction. Okay. Okay. So the first one the second one by Haslam and their colleagues. Okay. So these were the causes of accidents they identified after analyzing 100 cases of accidents within the UK. So these were some of the causes they identified. And it's interesting to note that worker behavior or action accounted for, close to 50%, okay, of the 100 cases they analyzed. Okay, but apart from that, there were other things that they found to have caused, or to have contributed to the causation of those accidents. Okay, yeah, but I wouldn't. There are several studies in this area, so you can read more about them. Okay, yeah, but moving on, one of the things previous studies have shown, is that design, how we design, okay, also can lead to the occurrence of accidents in construction. So from my own PhD, one of the things that was found was that complex designs, in other words, designs with intricate aesthetic qualities, they have the high potential to influence accident occurrence. Okay, but another study done in the US, they were able to link 42% of 224 fatalities. They were able to link them to how the design was done. Okay, in other words, the permanent works design. Okay, yeah. So, and another study in Australia, they looked at 258 accidents. Okay, so 250 cases of fatalities, and they were able to trace some of those cases. They were able to trace some of them back to the design. Okay, so there's a lot of evidence in literature to show that designs influence the occurrence of accidents within construction. Okay, it's not only design, but design is one of the key causes, if you like, of accidents within construction. Okay, and so that takes me back to my quiz. Okay, so I asked, which of the following can be described as an underlying or root cause of accident? So let me see what people said. Good. So 5 of you said it's untidy site, and 2 of you got it correct. Okay, so it's actually permanent works design. Okay, so permanent works design is an underlying cause of accident. It's an underlying cause of accident because it is remote. Okay, in terms of proximity to the accident happening. Okay, that the permanent work design is further away. Okay, in the process of accident causation, and we can get that from, for example, this slide that I showed you. So from previous studies, they have something they call the immediate accident circumstance, or shaping factors, or more broadly, what we describe as the immediate causes or the proximal causes. But behind the proximal causes, okay, are what we call the originating influences, or the underlying or the root causes. Okay, and as we can see from this study, permanent design, okay, was one of the prominent causes of accidents. So things like communication, the behavior, the hazards on the site, supervision, and so on and so forth. So these things they come broadly under what we call the immediate or the proximal, causes of accident. Okay, so those of you who chose permanent work design, you have the correct answer. Okay, so let's move on. So my next quiz to you, I think, should come up. So this is the quiz number 3. Okay, so which stage of construction project life cycle offers the greatest ability to influence safety? So now let me go over to the quiz, and then you can start answering it. So quiz number 3 is this one. Okay. So quiz number 3. So let me put the code in the chat. Okay. Let me put the code in the chat, and then let's see. Okay. Oh, you can see the code up there. So yeah, I can see that some of you have started answering it already, which is good. Okay. But I don't. Yeah. So the chat is here. Let me put it in the chat. So quiz 3. So that's the code. So I'll put the code for quiz 3 in the chat. And I see 5 of you have responded already, so that's good. So let's have a bit more responses. Okay, but let's hurry on. Okay. So I have just about 10 more slides, and then we'll be done. Okay. So the next slide answers that question. Okay, so let me see if how many of you have responded to it, and then we can just stop there, and then we'll talk about it. So I have 6. Okay, so let me just show the results. Okay, good. So all of you who responded chose the correct answer. So which stage of the construction life cycle offers the greatest ability to influence safety? So that is the design phase. Okay, so that is the design phase. And we can see that from my next slide to you, which is that one. Okay, so this time safety influence curve, okay, was proposed by Zembeski. And all that it's trying to say is that at the early phases of a project, okay, the project participants or actors have the greatest ability to influence safety, okay? And the same arguments goes for other things like sustainability, cost, okay? So at the early stages, the designers or the client or the project participant, okay, they have the best chance or the best opportunity to be able to influence several project outcomes, not just safety, but things like sustainability and things like cost. Because, for example, in terms of cost, if you design the building to be less expensive, you most likely get a building that is less expensive. Okay. But if you design the building to be very expensive during the construction phase, okay, it is more difficult. It will then become difficult to make the building less expensive because it has already been designed for it to become more expensive. So that is the argument or the thinking behind this time safety influence curve. So that means that clients, designers, project managers like yourselves, or people within the built environment profession who work at the design stage, okay? So we are supposed to do our best to be able to implement solutions, okay, that will make the construction phase less risky for people to work in. So that's what it is about, okay? And the concept of designing for safety, okay, also aligns with what we call the hierarchy of control, okay? So then the idea is that when we design for safety and health, what we are trying to do is to remove the hazard, okay? Is to remove the hazard so that during the construction phase, the workers wouldn't have to engage or interact or be exposed to those hazards. Okay, so the best thing is for us to remove them at source and the source is the design. Okay, so either we remove them, okay, through the design work we do, or we try to what, reduce exposure, okay, to those hazards. And that is what the concept of design for safety is all about. Okay, in some countries they call it prevention through design, others call it design for safety, and so on and so forth. And the whole idea is to anticipate and design out health and safety hazards associated with the structure or building during the design phase. Okay, so architects, civil engineers, structural engineers, service engineers, we have a role to play when it comes to design for safety and health. Okay, but I'm conscious of time. Okay, but I will pass these slides to you so you can take a look at these case studies. Okay, so these case studies give examples of design for safety. Maybe let me just pick one of them to demonstrate, to illustrate. Hope it doesn't freeze. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so this case study shows how we can use hazard identification on drawings. Okay, so if you're a designer and you are designing a building or a project, we can use symbols like these, okay, to communicate hazards, okay, to the construction team. Okay, so for example, if I don't know, there is a fragile material somewhere in the roof, okay, the designer can use some of these symbols, okay, to communicate, okay, the location of hazards, okay, to the contractor. So this is one of the ways of communicating hazards using, they call it hazard identification drawings. But these days, we have things like BIM. Okay, so these symbols, okay, can be put on the BIM model, highlight, okay, some hazards that a contractor may be less likely, okay, to be aware of. Okay, so that's just one example of how design for safety can be done, okay, in practice. But these other case studies, give other examples as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now let's talk about the factors that affect design for safety within construction. So myself and some colleagues, we did a review of literature in this area, and this is what we found. Okay, that several of the research work that has been done in this area, they have tended to focus on designer awareness and knowledge and education. Okay, so as one of the factors affecting design for safety implementation, but that's not the only factor. So things like the attitude of designers, so things like the availability of tools to facilitate design for safety. Another thing, client influence has a major, is a major factor, okay, when it comes to, implementing design for safety, because clients, are able to, influence that process more because they are the owners and they are the ones paying for the project. And so as project managers, if you work within a client organization, we need to be aware that we have a lot of influence, okay, when it comes to promoting design for safety within construction. But there are other factors as well. Okay. And in terms of design for safety, all over the world, several countries have introduced legislation. Okay. So for example, in Australia, they have theirs. In UK is a CDM. In Europe, there is a broader, legal framework, okay, that drives design for safety across, the various countries within the EU. You are aware of Singapore, they have the design for safety regulation. And then in Malaysia, it hasn't, my understanding is that it hasn't yet been mandated, but that's what they call the ocean. But the idea is that hopefully at some point, it might be, it might become, mandatory, for people to actually do that. Okay. And in terms of the CDM regulations in the UK, there various individuals or organizations within construction stakeholders have specific duties. So for example, clients have a duty, okay, and it spells out what those duties are. Designers have specific duties, contractors have their own, principal designers, okay, principal contractors, and the workers. So these are what we call the duty holders, okay? Various stakeholders in construction that have specific duties they need to fulfill within the CDM regulation. Okay, so I'm almost done now. And I believe the same applies with the OSHIM. So with the OSHIM, the last time I was in, when I was in Malaysia in January, Professor Kyril, and Azman, they gave me some materials that showed that, various stakeholders that have duties, okay? It showed, the things that they are expected to do. I'm sure these will be covered, somewhere, on your program, okay? So I'm almost done. So there are tools that can help you to engage in design for safety. And I've put some of the tools here, just to share them with you. So I'll share this slides. Those of you who are interested in engaging with these tools, you can follow the links, and then you can, either use them or, see how, they are or they can be used. Again, some additional material. So in the UK, various industry groups, okay, are driving that initiative, of design for safety. And these are two of those industry groups. I was part of this group. No, this one, the second one. So Design for Health Tax Group in Construction. The whole idea was to, encourage, designing for health, not just safety issues, but also designing to be able to improve the health of workers in construction. So now my last quiz to you, and then I will be done for the lecture. So who is responsible for the health and safety of workers on construction project? Okay, so let me go back to my quiz. And let me put on quiz number 4. And then that will be the last thing. Okay. So quiz number 4. So that's the code over there. In the chat. Let me find the chat. I see that 2 people have voted. Let me try and get the chat come up. Yeah. So quiz 4. So the code is this. So let's get it up to about 6 people, and then we can look at the results. Okay, so we have 7. Yeah. Any more responses? Okay. So let's see. So we have 8 now. Okay, so let me just display the results now. Lots of time. Okay. Okay, so let me just display the results. So who do we think is responsible for health and safety of workers? Okay, so okay. I hope it hasn't frozen. I can't display it now. Just give me a second. So H, yes, okay. So 2 of you said designer, 1 said contractor, but most of you got it correct. So it's all of the above. So health and safety is everyone's responsibility. Okay, so not just contractor, not just designer, not just a client, but it is everyone's responsibility. Okay, but various stakeholders, okay, have specific duties they have to play depending on their role, okay, and also depending on whatever regulation exists within one's country. So in the UK, the designers have their own responsibilities under the CDM. Clients have specific responsibilities, contractors have theirs, and then the workers also have theirs. Okay, but it's the health and safety in general is everyone's responsibility, including academics. So like myself, and Maslena, Kyrol, and my moderator. Okay, so who do research, okay, in safety and health and other things, and also teach, okay, construction students. So is that our responsibility is also to, raise health and safety issues, okay, either through our research or through our own teaching as well. Okay. So, and here are some references, and so that brings me to the end. So I'll take if there are any questions. So we can take
All right,
maybe
thank you,
1 or
Prof.
2 questions.
Dr. Patrick Manu, for your enlightening presentations and very interesting topic to be highlighted. Right, I think we have one question here from Nur Nikman.
Okay.
Prof, thank you for your excellent presentations and knowledge sharing. In the Malaysia, we have the Construction Industry Development Board, which is called as CIDB, to regulate the construction industry. If we don't have a certificate of registration with CIDB, our company would be considered conducting construction business illegally. Does the UK have similar regulations to regulate the construction industry? And does the UK have a certificate of registration for contractors?
Okay. I'm not aware. Okay, so in the UK, companies have to be registered. Okay, so whether you are construction or whatever business you are doing, so everybody has to be registered. Yeah, but specifically for construction companies, beyond that, I don't think there is any special registration again. Okay, for contractors, to do. But having said that, there are several organizations, or there are several construction groups, if I'm to put it that way. So for example, we have things like Build UK, we have Federation of builders. Okay, so these are sort of like professional bodies or professional groups, okay, which contractors, depending on their size, okay, may want to join. Okay, yeah, but it is not but they don't sort of give them a certificate that gives them the permission to be able to work. Okay, but in my home country, Ghana, where I am from originally, they have something probably closer to what you have in Malaysia, but we don't have the CDIB, the CIDB. But there is a government body that people are supposed to register with. Okay, and contractors have special classification. So they give them, the contractors in Ghana are classified as either general building contractors, civil contractors. I think they have electrical contractors, and I think plumbing. Okay, and then they have various classifications based on their size, based on their turnover, and other things. And so I think various countries approach this differently. In some countries, they may have a body that sort of either accredits or or certifies people that work in construction. But in some countries there is nothing like that. However, all companies have to be registered in order to become legal entities, okay, within those countries.
Right, thank you so much, Doctor. So is there any question from the floor? Do you have any question? I think everyone's good.
Another question, Doctor,
All right, okay.
from Shafiq.
Okay. Is there
Okay,
another question?
yeah. Do constructions work still proceed during winter in UK? If yes, what are the potential hazards and the safety mitigations to overcome it?
Yes. So in the UK, construction progresses, is done all year round. So summer, winter, spring, fall. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned work in winter. So you wouldn't. It's not really ideal, to be working in winter because it's cold and then you sometimes you have the snow. Yeah, but if if construction work stops, there's gonna be a lot of problems. So delays and and so on and so forth, and which clients and contractors do not want. And so contractors have ways of dealing with it. So workers have to dress warm, so they may have like just like they have like things like protective vests, but those are they are not vests, so they are like coats. Okay. High visibility coats that the workers can wear to keep them warm. And also they need to be mindful of the boots. Okay, so boots that have very good grip. Okay, so that in case there is snow, people don't slip and fall. But also one thing that people do, not just in construction but even within the communities, they tend to put some special sand. It's got salt in it. Okay, so they put they spread them around, so that the floors do not the ground doesn't become icy, and then people to prevent people from slipping. So these are some of the things contractors do in order to make it safe for people to carry on working even during the winter seasons.
Thank you, Prof. Is there any question on the floor? Well, actually, Prof, I have one question because as we all know that in developing countries, the design for safety is something that recently being acknowledged. So some of
Yeah.
the developing countries are struggling to implement or to introduce this concept, and most of the old age of the designers think that that is not their responsible because basically, as we all know, the traditionally understanding that it is a contractor responsibility to ensure that the safety for the whole
Yeah.
construction stage. So
Yeah.
what do you think about it?
Yes, yeah, I think it's a good point you've made. And clearly in the UK, I think when CDM was also introduced, there would have been some level of pushback from designers, within the industry. But over time, designers have come to accept that it is part of their duty. Okay, and so I think these things take time. Okay, but I think one of the important things, or one of the powerful drivers, I'll say two things. So one powerful driver will be through regulations. Okay, because once there's regulation to that effect, okay, it pushes people to behave in a certain way. And I think the approach Malaysia has adopted, in my view, I think it's a very useful approach, bringing in the ocean, but making it voluntary, maybe for a number of years to get people to become aware of it. Okay, and then at some point they will then mandate it. Okay, so I think that is a very good way, because there will definitely be some pushback from industry, because some people don't understand. Some people may not accept that it is a responsibility of designers, and so there should be that gradual sort of like change in attitude. okay, within the industry. And that is where the professional bodies, that is where the educators and researchers must all, come together and then, contribute their efforts to be able to raise awareness in that area. And then another massive influence is the influence of clients. And we all know that government is one of the major construction clients because government procure a lot of infrastructure or buildings, okay? And so if government being a major client, starts, requiring, designers or project actors, to consider design for safety, they'll have no choice because, if a client says that on my project, if you don't do design for safety, you are not going to be employed. You're not going to be given the contract. Okay, so that would also help to drive the behavior. So in my mind, I think two main drivers. So regulations can be powerful, okay, and also the influence of clients, particularly government being, a major construction client. The government can lead the way, okay, and then once government leads the way, the other the other sectors of the industry will follow. So, for example, in the UK, just before I think around 2013, 2014, just around that time, the UK government introduced a mandate that by 2016, all government projects should be procured using BIM. Okay. And once that mandate was given by the government, there was a massive push throughout industry, okay, for people to understand what BIM is, for people to upskill and so on and so forth. And now BIM has sort of become like the normal thing within the UK now. And that was because the government said that from a certain point, from a certain period, all the projects I'm going to procure, they have to be done through BIM. If you want to bid for them, then you should be able to, do it through BIM. So these are some of the drivers, I think that can help.
Okay, Prof, we have, I think, last question from the chat. What are your thoughts on chartered engineer and incorporated engineer in the UK? In the event of an incident on a construction site, are they held accountable for it?
Yes. So, So in the event of an accident, so what happens is that the health and safety. So, for example, if there's an accident and somebody dies, okay, so the health and safety executive gets involved, okay, and then they investigate. So it is an investigation that will determine who is held accountable. So if they do the investigation and they find out that the designers were negligent in a way, then the designers will be held, to account. If they find out that it was the contractor or the subcontractor or the principal contractor, okay, then whoever they find to be, have contributed to the occurrence of that event, okay, then the regulator, the health and safety executive, will hold that particular, those particular people to account. So that is how it happens. If they find out that the designers did all that they have to do based on the CDM regulation, then those designers will not be held to account. Okay, so it depends on what the investigation finds.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. As we approach to the end of this lecture series session, so I think we might have a photo group session. Can everyone, Prof?
Okay. Okay. So wait, let me put on the
Yeah.
the first slide. Okay. Yeah. And let me make it slideshow. Okay, no, it's fine. I think this is okay.
Okay, wait. Okay, wait. Setting first. I cannot.
Okay.
Can,
Do you
can
want me
you?
to do it? And
Yeah. Can you just stop sharing first?
okay, let me stop sharing. Yes. Okay, it's true. Yeah. Okay, stop sharing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Then we can
Right.
do it. Yeah.
Okay. Now I think everyone's here. Farah is here. Okay, Mr. Zahiri is here. Asuha and Muhammad Shafiq, you guys inside the classroom, right? Okay, all right. So can we give a big smile? 1, 2, 3. Say cheese. Okay,
Cheese.
one more. Let me face the photo. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Say cheese.
Cheese.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully we can still keep in touch, yeah, Prof. So maybe
Yes.
we can invite you for another event, or maybe you can have a lecture for architecture students in your ITM Perak.
Yeah,
We can do
that's
online
fine.
meeting just like this. Okay, thank you so much for everybody's cooperations, and also Prof Patrick, Dr. Patrick. So hopefully we can meet sometimes in another
Okay,
day.
so
Have a good day, everyone.
okay, yeah, thanks very much
Thank
for
you,
having me,
Prof.
and
Thank you,
I
Prof.
wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Okay, bye bye to you.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.